All right. Hey, Jennifer,
Hey there.
can you hear me okay?
I can.
So today's kind of a fun day because I am in West Islip, New York at Good Samaritan Hospital. In fact, if I were to turn the camera around, the emergency room is all right there. And I mean, this is a great thing we're doing down here.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of
Yeah. Give me one.
a lot to
Hold on.
manage. You've got technology, you've got cranes, you've got modules.
Yeah, we do. All right. So I had the LinkedIn feed coming through at the same time. So there's so much going on. So we just had the Blue Angels that came by less than 20, 30 minutes ago. And one thing we all realized is, what happened to the internet service? My guess is that, because it's a public flyby that everybody knows that the Blue Angels are coming by, they killed all the Wi-Fi. So we've been having a heck of a time just because of that. And I'm assuming it's the same like when the president flies in and everything else. So I have to tell you. So we got off to a slow start this morning because of some Wi-Fi issues, but we got everything up and running. We were live for about an hour this morning. But what's really cool about building modular today was all about set day. And
Mhm.
look behind me here. I'll make my screen bigger so everybody can say. We are on a set with Axis Construction and Mod Logic, the manufacturer of the units, and we are installing right now a pediatric section to the hospital. It's roughly, I think, 16, 17 modules. We're going to get about 8 modules set today. But if you can see right behind me, Jen, check it out. I mean, the stone, the brick's already on. These are steel framed. They got 5-inch monolithic poured concrete floors. These are the real deal, and all the pipes that you see in a hospital for air and oxygen and all that stuff. So, you know, I think today's really all about set, and it really, really is all about set day. So, super, super excited to be here. Super excited to be able to be a part of this. Everybody's practicing social distancing, and it's funny. You got the PR guy. You got to keep your distance and what have you, and keep our masks on. So, what's happening in Connecticut?
Yeah, certainly pales in comparison to what you're seeing over there. Definitely have a beautiful day, and like I said, a lot of activity. And I think it's really neat that the Blue Angels, really tipped their wings to this crew. This project, this Good Samaritan Hospital, even though this was in the works far before the whole COVID-19 pandemic, but schedules were expedited. People, really came together. Access Construction and Mod Logic, the planning team, the design team, the construction team, the pre-construction process all really came together quickly in an effort to get this done now. So they pulled forward the production, they pulled forward the set, and here you are. And you had John Bongiorno on earlier.
Yep.
And he was saying that by 4th of July, they'll be seeing patients here.
Yeah, they really will. This is 85% done. And I just want everybody to know what we're streaming right now on LinkedIn is not the stream service we were using earlier. So if the picture is a little fuzzy, we're just using regular Wi-Fi to stream this as we recharge for our 4 o'clock live stream, which should be a better picture where we're actually going to walk through these. But you're absolutely right, Jennifer. The fact that these are 85% complete, these guys by July are going to have this ready to go to see patients. Even getting this project going, they got some special permission to have it up and running in quick order with the factory, because most of the factories in PA were shut down, but they let them finish this because it is for the hospital. And this isn't for COVID. This is a pediatric. But they need the space, and we got to keep moving this along. So, all the medical people, they can operate and function the way they need to operate and function. And I also just want to clarify the Blue Angels didn't fly by just for this project. It just happens to be good timing. They were doing a flyby for all the healthcare workers, from what I understand. So they're hitting over all the major hospitals in New York, Long Island. They were in upstate New York. So I think they're probably just flying down the coast and doing it. And we got the tail end of it, but they came and went real fast.
That's fabulous. Yeah, you blink and you miss it, right?
Yeah, it really is. So if you guys tuning in, today's all about set day, by the way. So in these sets, this is a commercial set, steel construction, Jen. I think it's a 250-ton crane. Most modular guys are using, on something small, 60-ton to, maybe 120, depending on the reach and the span. So and these units here, compared to like a residential, these run 50,000 to almost 70,000 pounds, depending on the unit. Think about that. Where traditional modular construction is 15 to 30, maybe, give or take, plus or minus. So it's a real big deal, and it's pretty amazing to be a part of right now.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because this is our Building Modular series, and believe it or not, this is week 6 that we're doing this now. And as you mentioned, today was all about set day. That's really what we wanted to speak to. And when you think about all the modules that are coming in, so these are 16 modules that we have transported from New Holland, Pennsylvania. This job site is in West Islip, New York. There was a lot of transportation issues to work through here because you had to go through New York City to get to the site. So when you're thinking about set, one of the first things that you need to plan for is the transportation, the transit, and the bridges, and obviously not the tunnels, but getting through New York City. This must have been a sight to see, coming across those bridges and through NYC.
Yeah, well, they came across, I believe, the George Washington last night around midnight. They have special time for these wide loads to come in and do that. But transportation is such a big deal. I mean, depending on the size of the load, you have to pull permits to travel through each state. You have to, obviously have flag cars, or in some states, they'll make you hire, the state troopers have to escort you. And there's very specific routes that you need to take, and it's very planned out on where these are going. So, I say it in every show, devil's in the detail, and it's a ballet of coordination.
Yeah, for sure. And then once they got there, Dave, I mean, another thing that you need to think about, regardless of it's commercial or residential, is staging the modules. Where were the modules staged? Where did they put everything?
Yeah, on this particular job, we blocked off a big section of the hospital's parking lot on the back side. So it's really great. When we do our next live feed at 4, if people are interested, they can tune in and see it. But yeah, we got a huge parking lot, and it's literally backing right up into the site. The site's all fenced off. You have to have access, cards and what have you to get in here. But yeah, plenty of staging. In general, staging can be a big deal.
Yeah. So are they moving the crane around? Is the crane located in one spot and it's picking all the modules? How are they managing that?
Yeah, so let me make my screen bigger. The crane behind me right here. So what they're doing, if I can see, you guys want to see my seat? I'm sitting on a spool of wire. That's why I'm moving around, because look at all the bolts. But if what you can see here, Jen, is they're starting on the back end on this side. I know it's kind of hard for me to see. Maybe it's better if I go this way. They're starting on the back end over here, right? There's already 2 modules, one there and one on the other side. So this is the 3rd module that's set. And they're going to work their way out to their 8 modules, which is about halfway through where we're at today. And the crane is probably either going to sit, it might move. I think it just depends on the operator and how comfortable he is with the weight loads and the way that boom's going to lower it, right? Because you only have so much reach and so much reach and so much tilt with that boom for weight loads until you have to move and get closer to your subject to keep that center point stabilized.
Wow.
So
that's something that you need to consider, right? If you're doing residential or commercial. If we've worked in some high density areas, Jersey City, New Jersey, Fairfield, Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut. So one thing that we take into consideration often is you may need a bigger crane if you really can't move that crane around, and you're picking those modules from different locations. So your set crew can help you figure that out logistically, just in terms of the right tools for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And the set crew is paramount. In fact, John Bergiano and I were talking about the rigging crew that they call it here. And there's only one company that they let do this. You know, this is very specialized. I don't know if you can hear it or see it. See the guy behind me welding in the background?
Yeah.
Let me put this bigger. They actually weld these. So he's welding right.
Hold on. There you go.
Right. So where this is different than like a residential site, Jennifer, is, you know, this is sitting on steel plates. Oh, can you see the module coming in behind me?
I think we lost you. Did we lose you? Oh, there you are. Yep. There it is.
Can you see that module? I'm going to make the screen bigger so people can see it coming in.
Nice.
All right. So that's the fourth module. They're going to tie it in right here. You see the guy at the red helmet, he's the welder. And these are sitting on steel plates on concrete piers. You know, we're literally a block off the Long Island Sound. So there's a water table right under the slab. So this slab is on grade beams. They call it a floating slab because of the high water table. And then if you can see the rebar along the base of this foundation, I mean, that's one of the things these guys have to work around. And sometimes they're over there bending them out of the place because they're in the way when they're setting. But that rebar is because they're going to have a brick ledge that comes up there. So you can see the brick coming down the side of the face of this unit here. Windows are in. Like, this is volumetric. How awesome is this? You can see the rooms are done in there. It's so white you can't really even tell. The firewalls are in. But what's so great is they'll be able to just pour the concrete, tie everything in. We are on the Sound. So this is high wind zone, hurricane, right? There's all those parameters that we need to work within. And yeah. So pretty cool, right? That we're on set day and we're really on a set. Who would have thought with everything going on that this actually would have timed out the way it did? I'm looking down here, but you guys are up there.
Yeah. So, you know, you bring up a good point because you are right on the Sound and weather is fickle. So all the good planning in the world doesn't really matter. If you have a wind, it looks like there might be a little bit of a breeze there today, or any threat of weather, because especially where you are right now, the weather can change instantly. Those are the things that as you are approaching, you know, a couple of days out from the set, you really need to make sure that, you know, all of those natural elements are lined up for you, because that could wreak havoc on a job site.
Yeah, no, it really, really can wreak havoc on the job sites. And, you know, especially when you got 50,000 to 70,000 pounds swinging through the air, you know, it can be, you know, you don't want the wind getting a hold of it. That's a kite you just can't control. But there's a light breeze today. You know, you might have heard it on some of the speakers, you know, when we're talking. But overall, Jen, it turned out to be beautiful. I'm going to have the most beautiful tan line around my face right here, all the way around. It's going to be like a tan beard.
Yeah. So, awesome. So with that, you know, again, just going back to the weather, it is all about planning. And even when you have the right teams in place, you can do this confidently. You can move forward with confidence. What are some other things that you need to be on the lookout for? Like, this looks like a nice wide open space here. I'm not seeing any power lines or anything interrupting that boom.
Well, there were some signs and stuff that they had to take away to get out of here. And again, I mean, if you, I can't really boom, but you can see they rerouted power lines and stuff that were coming into the hospital. Obviously, you can't shut down the hospital. So there's been a lot of work put in getting this prepped just for this day, you know, and get it set. So yeah, I mean, power lines are definitely an obstacle. Barriers, fences, signs. You know, these are big units like you just saw set behind me getting put into place. So one has to be super, super careful, you know, in the planning process to make sure that you can get in here. It's sometimes you got to kind of lick your thumb and say, yeah, I think it can fit. It'll fit.
Yeah. No, I think they're a little more precise than that. But yeah. So with that, you know, we talked about weather. We talked about some elements that might be in the way. You know, going back to transportation for a minute, you know, getting here, I'm sure was on major highways. But again, if you're going to some older towns, older cities, something that we need to be careful of is the weight load of the modules, obviously the weight load of transport and bridge weight load restrictions and bridge heights and things of those nature. So from a logistical standpoint, you really want to drive that route a couple of times and just make sure that those modules can make it in. Because how much did you say they weigh, those modules?
Yeah, these modules can be 50,000 to 60,000 pounds at any, just depending on what unit it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a lot, 50 to
Yeah.
60,000. Like I said,
Yeah.
in normal residential modular construction, you can be 15,000, 12,000, 30,000. So, but when you get into steel and concrete like this, then, it's a different game. Much bigger crane needed, everything.
So going back to residential for a minute, another thing that we deal with is, and you're dealing with it there, you mentioned the water tables, but when you're thinking about the weight of everything and the location of everything and high density locations, especially, something that we need to be concerned about is, septic plans and septic tanks and places on, a homeowner's residence where we can set modules and set the crane. You have to take all of that into consideration as well.
You do. You got to, listen, these are big erector sets coming down the highway, and through residential areas to get to hospitals like this one, or just residential in general. So I was doing some things, so there was some action happening behind me. But I think, overall, you have to drive the route, not just plan it and send, hey, here's how you get here. You got to plan the route. You got to drive the route. You got to drive looking for low power lines. You got to drive looking for, trees that are bent in. Because remember, we're 13, 14, 15 feet up by 14, 15 on these ones wide, almost 16 foot wide coming in. It's huge volume. And you have to be very, very careful the entire route in and plan very carefully what's in the way, because it's the little things that'll cause you delays. And when you're into projects like this, delays cost a lot of money.
Absolutely. So again, working with the right crane company, the right rigging crew, the right set crew, these are all very important partners at this point in the process.
Yeah, very much so. Listen, this is not a beginner's game at this job at all. This takes a lot of planning. It takes people that have years of experience that have done this over and over and over again. This is a mistake here is big money. It costs a lot of money, so you really got to do your planning up front, right? But you know what? You look at this crew back here. They go job to job. They do a ton of jobs. They've done other hospitals. That's what they specialize in, commercial construction.
Right.
They have it down to an absolute science, and that's where the value comes in.
Absolutely. And when you're working with a very competent team like Axis Construction on site, the modular division's been in place over 20 years. John Bongiorno said it earlier. He's been in this for over 30 years. These are people that really know what to look out for. And they're your trusted advisors, that really makes for good partners.
Yeah.
And you were, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, you were talking about the foundation earlier. Does it matter, like in terms of how you set the modules and the planning process and everything else, does it matter what type of foundation you're using, whether it's poured in the field, precast, does that make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. So again, this is coastal, so this one's a little bit different. This is, with grade beams, and it's a whole nother conversation, but that's a big grid pattern that's underneath the ground, or underneath the slab, I should say. But yeah, this is not a job for a superior wall set and this particular site, like a precast foundation system. But yeah, this whole system here and the foundation is precisely designed by really smart engineers that understand modular construction to make this happen. So it makes a big difference. Residential construction, commercial construction, and light commercial construction, they all have different things.
Yeah. So. And so what's really neat about ModLogic, again, they're out of New Holland, Pennsylvania. They built this entire structure in their factory.
They did get in the factory. They did do the whole thing. In fact, let me pull myself back here. Jim Gabriel from ModLogic is going to be here with us this afternoon. So we're going to do a walkthrough with Jim from ModLogic, and yeah, we'll be covering a ton of that stuff.
Yeah. So with that, they put it all together. They made sure everything lined up, and all the drops were where they needed to be, and broke it down, set it up on some trucks, shipped it over the GW, and
Yeah.
here they arrived. For others who are doing this on a smaller scale, who may not have that type of partner that they're working with, that type of assembly that's being done.
Right.
One of the critical things to remind our builders out there is that when the modules do arrive, a key step to keep in mind is inspect those modules once they get to the site. Walk through, take a look, collect any paperwork. What should they be on the lookout for when the modules arrive?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna take a step back here just for a second with ModLogic on this particular job. I don't know if you heard in the live feed earlier, one of the crewmen walked up. There's a few times where we thought we lost our feed and it was still going, but that's just the signals we get out here. And the guy came up and said, this set is going just perfect, and ModLogic just did an outstanding job. I mean, they're true professionals. I mean, this stuff is just amazing when you see it. So I wanted to touch on that precision of what they have done here. Think about putting 16 pieces together on a site like this big that's happening behind us, and it all works out. So I should knock on wood because we're not halfway even through, but the way it's going now, it's been great. And what was your follow-up question to that, Jen?
Just what builders should be on the lookout for when the modules arrive. Clearly these goods, they're receiving these goods before, before they're lifted by the crane. They'll want to take a look at them and just inspect the merchandise, really.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, when they get here, you want to make sure there was no accidents. They didn't hit anything on the way in. Check the modules, make sure all the wrap's on to keep them dry, right? Because you're going to a staging area. So that's step one. Step two is, you can do it before. Most people do it after the modules are in place. You need to go through, do an inventory check.
Yes.
Double check everything. Where ModLogic is different than most, modulars, at least in, most residential, I'll say, because that's a lot of our followers. They put this entire structure together,
right?
The entire thing before it ever left the factory. So they know it's the right size. So, but you do need to go through. You need to go through your orders. You need to check your measurements, and it's kind of like now you're living the paper drawings that you did for so long. You're living it now on live.
It's real live.
You're walking through your plans live now.
Yeah, there were some comments earlier from the live feed. Some of the folks that worked on the design. Making comments as the modules were being set, just saying, wow, it is so much different when it's in 3D, that this is what volumetric is all about.
It is so much different when it's in 3D. When you see it on paper, it's one thing, but that paper does come to life, pretty quick. And I think that you need to pay attention on the paper side of this for it to really, really happen. So yeah, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. So how does the crane actually lift up the modules? I mean, how does the strapping work, and what are they using to lift the modules?
Right. I mean, with the crane and the rigging, I don't know if you can kind of see it behind me here. They're actually going to go over and lift this crane now. They have a whole rigging process that it's kind of neat. So it's an 8-point connection, at least on the ones we were recently just watching. And so you have them come down on both sides of the module, right? Both sides. And then what you end up having, in fact, let me take this off the screen. You also end up having 4 more that come down, but they're chains and they have ratcheting systems on it. So you can level and pick it up the way you need to level and pick it up. So, I mean, it's a very, very neat system the way they're going to do it. And maybe you guys can catch a little bit about the back, but they're probably still 20 minutes out from picking up that module. So you might just have to come back to our 4 p.m. live stream and watch it.
Right. And then so is there any rhyme or reason in terms of which modules get set first?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's you don't want to be working blind, trying not to work blind. So they're typically going to start from the furthest corner and work their way, back. Right. So they can see people. You don't want to be working blind and not see somebody. These are, like I said, this will squash you like an ant.
Okay. So they set that first corner and then work toward where the crane
over
is.
here. Yeah, they set that first corner on this back. Like I said, this is the third module, and then the one right where that ladder is the fourth module in place.
Okay, so it's 125 right now, and you have 4 modules set, so you're halfway through.
Yeah. We started lifting. What was it, David? About 10:30 or something. I got with me. Yeah, it was about 10:30. We finally started picking them up off the ground. Maybe a little earlier, but right around there. So yeah, it's about a module, per hour and a half typically.
Okay, neat.
It can be less. Everybody'd like it to go faster, but
slow and steady wins the race in this one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions coming in from Alistair Sawyer. He was asking about the weight of the modules. We talked about that. You said between 60 and 70,000 pounds.
Yeah, well, between 50 and 70.
Okay.
Is what they were saying. It just depends on the module. They were actually saying around 68,000, so I'm rounding up a little bit.
Got it. And then his second question is, you mentioned steel and concrete modules used here. Is the concrete used for the floors, and is it typical concrete or lightweight concrete?
All right. Now, that's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I did not ask what type of concrete, but it is a 5-inch concrete slab. It is being used on the floors.
Terrific. So that's one we can save for John Bongiorno when he comes back later.
Yeah. For sure.
Cool.
Any shout outs? Who's logged on? I can't see like I normally can.
I'm having some technical difficulties on my end too. So I was able to get to Alistair's questions, but I'm going to try and refresh and see what else we have happening. Okay. In the meantime, in terms of this, again, being on the coast, how are they securing the modules to the foundation?
Right. Well, these have steel plates, unlike a wooden sill plate. So the concrete piers have a steel plate on it, and then they are welding them into place on site.
So that's what you were describing earlier, and that's what we were seeing in the background.
Yeah, so, the welder was there.
Yeah, so you really need to make sure that everything is plumb and square when that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. No, that definitely you don't want to unweld, I guess is the word.
Yeah, and then when you're putting these together, going back to residential construction for a minute, from an engineering perspective, that's where you'll figure out what your site requires and how you'll connect your modules to the site. And again, when you're in a coastal location, that wind zone strapping will be required. Definitely need to pay attention to what the rules are. But the added benefit of that is, should a storm come through, those modules are not going anywhere.
No, these are not going anywhere. Not anytime soon, anyhow. It would have to be something pretty spectacular once these are in place to move them. Because again, that whole grade beam around the outside, if you can see it down right there, that's all steel rebar, and there's more concrete getting poured that's going to even lock these units in tighter than what they're already being locked into the foundation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and we've seen plenty of those pictures, right? Those unfortunate times where a storm does come through and you see complete devastation, but what does remain is those homes built using modular construction. Yeah,
for sure. And like you were saying, I mean, it just depends on your area, the region. We're on the coast, so you get a lot of hurricane issues that you have to deal with, and wind strapping, high wind zone, velocity zone. But building on piers, but inland, Ohio, Pennsylvania, other places in the country, other than California, is kind of like the East Coast with, they have earthquake issues and so forth. But, yes, you need the engineer to tell you what you need to do for the structural foundations and the weight loads and how it all gets handled.
Yeah. So I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but how, and we'll have to tune in tomorrow to really see this in action, but how does the roof structure come into play?
On these units, I mean, it's commercial structure, so it's not going to have a gable roof or anything like that. This is going to be a flat roof, and it's going to have its internal drainage and so forth. We'll try and get some pan shots of the other roof lines here, during the next feed.
Yeah, which is great. And again, just kind of jumping back and forth between commercial and residential, one thing that we've worked out, which has been really great with our trade partners on site, you know, when the mechanicals need to be installed locally, it's super fun to have, you know, for example, our HVAC guys there running ductwork before the modules get picked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, you'll see in this one, that stuff's already in place here.
Right.
This is different. So when you see the amount of detail in the plumbing, the gas lines, the mechanical systems, the, you know, ERVs, HRVs, whatever is in this, yeah, I mean, it's a work of art when you really look at it.
Yeah. So do you have folks from ModLogic there on site today?
There are. So like I said, Jim Greatwell, Jim's coming out, you know, in a little bit. And, but yeah, there's all kinds of people here. There's got to be 50 people running around behind me somewhere from all different, not just two companies. It's Axis, it's ModLogic, it's Fulcrum, I think was the name. So, and I mean, yeah, you got the drivers, you got truckers. I mean, you got the crane. So there's a whole lot of different companies here making this happen.
Yeah. And everybody's got their PPEs.
They do. Everybody's wearing their personal protection. So, I mean, it just makes sense, right? You don't want to endanger anybody. And, you know, it's just the nature of the business. These guys are out here doing all these hospital jobs, trying to get these things in place so the hospital has what they need. And, you know, the great thing about it is, you know, they know there's a risk being here.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're not driving around, you know, you're pretty planted there on the job site, but on your way in, did you see any other construction happening?
I mean, it's quiet everywhere, quiet everywhere. You know, even where we're staying, I think if there's 10 people on a 400 room place, that's probably a lot.
Wow.
So, which is good because I don't want to be in a place full of people right now. This is as close as I'm getting. This is it. Yeah. So it's been a good day. So, well, this has been awesome. Anything coming through that we want to answer, or is it stuff we can get back to? I know our feed's probably not too good.
Yeah. One last question about the size of the crane, which I think we talked about, and
yeah, it's about 200. I think it's a 250. You know, it's a big crane.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back here live again at 4 p.m. today, so we don't want to give people out there too much Dave Cooper.live fatigue because there's a lot of activity happening. And at moments, I'm sure it seems really slow, and at other moments, it's moving fast and furious.
Yeah. Please hit that like and share button if you can hear us. And it has been. And last night, Jen, I was up till 1 o'clock testing this new streaming service, and we learned something being down here. You know, we don't live in such a populated area in Connecticut, but down here it's very populated. So the bandwidth with everybody on Zoom calls and everything that was going on, we had to make some real adjustments to our upload speeds and everything. And you know, trial by fire. You know, I got a lesson today on some things, but you know, here we are. It's great, but I want to apologize because you probably got dinged up until 1 a.m. last night if you're calling me on these live feeds about a dozen times. So my apologies, but we had to get the testing in to make sure we could do this.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Well, if you have any more questions, tune back in at 4 p.m. today. It's really exciting to be talking about, you know, the installation and set of modules with an actual job site in the background. Beautiful day out there in West Islip, New York, and, you know, Good Samaritan Hospital